And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Today we're going to take a look at Antike Duellum, which is a two-player game from Matt Gertz, which is based on Antike, which I have not played. So I thought that'd be an interesting thing to take a look at this game, which I heard was a very good game for two players. Kind of a Euro-ized war game. Let's take a look at it, and we'll be back. Alright, this is one side of the board. I'll show you a little bit later the other side. Essentially, they're the same game, except the maps are different. One person takes the dark brown pieces, the other person has the light pieces, and then they have the temples, which are honestly too close to the light person's pieces. They should have made them a little bit differentiated in color. But what matter? This game takes place all around the rondel, which is typical of this designer's designs. In fact, I think Matt Gertz has done very few designs without the rondel. And his rondel works the same as most other ones do. What this does is on your turn, at the very first turn of the game, you put your piece on any one of these spaces that you want, and you take the actions for that space. Starting with the next turn, you can move 1, 2, or 3, and take the actions of those 3. You can actually move farther than 3, but once you go more than 3, you're going to have to pay resources to go farther than 3. The resources in this game, there is iron, gold, and marble, and then there are coins, which are basically a wild resource. You can use them for any resource. So what do these different actions do? Well, 3 actions are the same. If you go to marble, iron, or gold, you will get resources from any city that you have. At the beginning of the game, you only have 1 city for each resource. And so if I took the gold action at the beginning of the game, I would get 1 gold, but I would also get 1 coin. Whenever you take one of these actions, you always get 1 coin, and you also get 1 resource per city. If that city has a temple in it, you'll get 3 resources. So if this was the way the game's board looked for me, I would have 1 gold for this city, plus 3 gold for that city, 4, so I get 4 gold and a coin. So that's the way the resources work. Then we have this spot here where you can spend 6 marble to build a temple in any of your cities. Temples are good because they provide defense and more resources like I just showed. You can also build a fort. Players will start the game with 1 fort and get more as time progresses on. So you can build a fort in one of your cities on the board, which will give it +1 in defense. Then you can go here and spend gold to recruit more units and to do different advances. Down here is you recruit units, you'll put them in the box. Ships are recruited for 2, and soldiers are recruited for 1. Putting them in this box prepares them to be deployed on the board, but does not actually deploy them. And then over here you can buy special actions, or basically technology. The first person to buy each technology pays the first price of gold, and the second person pays the second price, and then you will simply put a disc on that to show that you have that. This gives your troops and ships extra movement. Whenever you get resources, you get an extra resource. Here you get +1 to defense to your cities, and here you can trade any 3 resources for any 2 resources of your choice. Then the next action on the rondel here is the troops. This is where you would deploy your troops. You pay 2 iron for each troop that you want to deploy. They come from your box, and they will show up on your cities. You can put 1 on each city, or you can put 3 on a city that has a temple. And then finally, these 2 spots here are the same. These allow you to move the different people on the board and or attack other cities. When you move, one of the nice things about this game is that each of these spaces has blue borders and red borders. And that makes movement very simple. Troops can move only over red borders. Ships can only move over blue borders. And you can move only 1 spot unless you have the technology. If you move into a spot where there is an enemy trooper, you both are eliminated. It's a 1-for-1 elimination. If you move into a spot where there's an enemy city, you can eliminate a troop to take that city. The city has a defense of 1, although if a city has higher defenses due to technology, walls, or temples, you'll have to expend more troops than that, but you can capture other people's cities. And in fact, if that city has a temple, you can even destroy the temple. You don't get to capture it. Now, players can also, at the end of their turn, after they take whatever action a rondel gives them, they can pay 1 of each resource to build a new city, although they also have to pay coins if this city is next to a city that is of the same type of city. So players are doing all this, and the reason that you're doing this is because you're trying to move up here on this victory point track. Each time you accomplish a goal of the game, you move up here. The first person to go up to 9 is the winner. Each time you move up on the victory point track, your opponent gets to draw one of these face-up event cards, which cause minor things in the game, and those will be replaced from this stack here. But the way you get a victory point is by collecting a personage. Each of these cards does something differently. For every 5 cities you control, you'll get a king. So if you get 5, you get 1 king. If you get 10, you get another king. If you go below, you don't lose the king, but then you don't get it when you go back up over 10. So there's different kings. There's Oedipus, yay. So you have different kings that you can get, and each of these will make you up a victory point. For every 3 temples you own, you will get a citizen, and this works just like the other one. Now, there's only 12 temples in the game, so once they're on the board, you have to destroy them to get other ones out. The first person to do each technology gets a scholar, and so there's 5 different technologies, and whoever's the first one, you can get Socrates or Herodotus. And the first person to have 7 seas that are sailed, you have your ships out in 7 seas on the board. Any spot with a ship in, though, counts for 2 of those spots, so you can do this with fewer than 7 ships on the board, so that will give you one of these. And then every time you destroy a temple, you get a general card. So that's how you get your points. The first person to get to 9 points is the winner. As I said, you can play here on this side, which would be Rome versus Carthage, and here you would play on this side, which is the Greeks versus the Persians. This game for me was very boring. Now, I know that, I'm not a huge fan of Matt Gert's games to begin with. I wasn't a big fan of Imperial. But I do like Hamburgum, which uses the rondel. I have it here on my shelf behind me. I think that worked really well. I love the theme of that one, building churches. But this one here, the rondel mechanic for me, I'm not so enamored with it as other people are. I think it's okay. Pick your next action. It can be one of these 3 or more if you want to pay for it. Okay, I'm not opposed to that. It's fine. I just don't think it's all that in a bag of chips. But where this game for me wasn't that interesting is that it plays out pretty much the same each time. And it almost feels like the beginning, you kind of got to get a temple as fast as you can. So you got to get your marble production up to get that temple out. And then when you get that temple out, then you can ramp up your other production. And I just didn't feel, combat was very boring. 1-for-1 combat. And I know I sound like a hypocrite because I love Small World where there's that 1-to-1 combat. But with that, there's special powers and everything. Here, I never felt like I was playing the Romans versus Carthage or the Greeks versus Persians. I felt like I was playing a white army versus a brown army, and we were both essentially the same. The technologies were cool. The event cards were boring as all get out. I guess they're not overpowered at least. And you pretty much have to conquer someone else's temple to win the game. And I guess that was another thing I thought. You have to get 9 things, but if you think about it, there's 5 technologies, so probably one person will get 3 and the other person's 2. So we'll say I'm lucky and I'm the one who gets 3. Then I can get 5 cities and 10 cities. So 10 cities, that gives me 2 more, that's 5. And then I get 6 temples, so that's 6 and 7, and then I sailed the 7 seas once, so that's 8. I still have to conquer someone else's temple, and I just felt like the game didn't really give a lot of options. Now, I think that this does not mean I would not like Antike, because I think Antike would be interesting, as in there'd be other people on the board, so I'm working with multiple people that I have to deal with, rather than just my single opponent that I'm going to town on. So I think the board looks nice. I think the pieces are bland. I think that the theme is bland, and I think so. Therefore, it just gave me a really bland feel. I'm not saying it's a bad game at all. It's probably very well designed, and I think there's probably people out there who would like this. But for me, the game just lacked any sort of excitement at all. I almost ignored my opponent. I kind of kept one eye on if his troops are coming towards me. But other than that, battles weren't exciting. Yes, I know you say, well, you don't need dice to have exciting battles. Well, almost you do. I mean, there needs to be some kind of level of thrill to a game, and this one just doesn't have it. It's solid, but rarely goes outside the norms, doesn't seem to offer too many differential strategies in it. So, sorry, I just don't like it.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.
Shut the door! Shut the door!
Shut the door!